allihopa.
I södra delen av Negevöknen, några mil norr om Eilat, ligger Timnaparken, en av de största turistattraktionerna i södra Israel. Parken ligger i ett majestätiskt ökenlandskap och har en spännande historia som sträcker sig tusentals år bakåt i tiden. De röda bergstopparna som skiljer ut sig från de omgivande kullarnas ljusgula sanddynor vittnar om vad som har pågått här i flera tusen år. Nämligen brytning av koppar. Här, vid berget Timna, fanns världens första koppargruva som var aktiv redan under kung Salomons tid. Genom att åka bil genom Timnaparken kan man se efterlämningarna av den gruvverksamhet som redan det forna egyptiska imperiet utnyttjade. Koppar var den första metallen som användes till att skapa verktyg, hushållsredskap, vapen och smycken. Så betydelsen av koppargruvorna i Timna var vid denna tid mycket stor. I Timna Park får man inte bara en spännande historielektion, man kan också njuta av det vackra landskapet som tack vare naturens egen försorg har formats till dramatiska konstverk i färg och form. Mitt i Timna Park finns även en konstgjord sjö som ligger bredvid en restaurang. Här finns även en replika av tabernaklet som det såg ut när Moses ledde det judiska folket från Egypten genom öknen på väg mot det förlovade landet. Timna koppargruvor tog upp produktion av koppar i början av 50-talet som ett initiativ av David Ben Gurions ambition att skapa ett levande samhälle i Negev-området. Nu finns återigen planer på att starta upp gruvdrift i området.
The ancient mines was basically on the lower part of the cliffs all around the Timna Valley, starting from more than 6,000 years ago and as you mentioned was active in the times of King Solomon.
When Ben Gurion came to Negev, he said we must start the mining again.
Right.
Can you explain?
Yes, at the early 50s, a new modern mining and producing copper factory was established in the southern part of the valley. We can see it from here. It's from the other side of those mountains. But it was active till the early 80s and shut down because of economical reasons, because of the raise of the copper value in the last years. They are going to renew it within this year, we hope, renewing the modern copper mining in Timna.
What was Ben Gurion's view of this? Why did he wanted the mining to start?
The idea of Ben Gurion was that the future of this country will be in the Negev. All kind of values and from the rocks, from the water, from the agriculture. And one of Ben Gurion was a very knowledgeable man about Bible, and he knew about the stories of copper sources in the ancient times, the biblical times, and he wanted to renew those periods, and that's why he pushed to reopen this activity. That during the last years, an archaeological expedition of the Tel Aviv University found a very big industrial site from the times of King Solomon, the 10th century BCE, an Edomite factory for mining and producing copper. And according to the Bible, we know that in that time of the 10th century the Edomites were a vassal kingdom of King Solomon kingdom. So they raised taxes, maybe with copper ingots to King Solomon. And during the last seasons, those archaeological found a direct relation with the Central Park of Israel that tells us about caravans, donkeys caravans that took all kind of goods from Timnah to the center of Israel, maybe Jerusalem, and back.
Centrala Arava är en region som består av 6% av landet Israels yta, djupt ned i Negevöknen. Här finns 7 samhällen med 900 familjer som tillsammans utgör knappt 4000 personer. Trots det ytterst kärva ökenklimatet är området idag ett slags Silicon Valley för Israels forskning och utveckling när det gäller grönsaksodling. Här finns mängder av stora växthus som breder ut sig i det torra ökenklimatet. På en höjd strax utanför samhället Paran i centrala Arava, med utsikt över några av dessa växthus, möter vi Noat Ser som berättar hur det kom sig att en liten grupp människor för drygt 50 år sedan beslutade sig för att utmana öknen.
When you look to your left, you can see one of the communities of the Central Arava, which is Paran. This is actually the southern gateway to the Arava. From here all the way up north, about an hour drive north, this is the region of Central Arava, all in all 7 communities. Now, just to give you an orientation, if you look to your right, this is where Jordan is. And actually, when you look at the Jordanian border, it's really hard to notice where the border is at, because you don't see any wall, you don't see any concrete or barbed wires, you don't see any army presence. And if you want me to tell you where the border is at, I will tell you when the last greenhouse stops and there's nothing, just sand, this is where Jordan begins. And this is actually our mission here. Make the desert bloom, settle the desert, and make sure that there are people here. Now, one question that always rises is, how come only 900 families are living here? If you go to Tel Aviv, 900 families is maybe 2-3 blocks. And the answer is quite simple. This is a very challenging area to live in. First of all, the natural conditions are very bad. This is a desert, so this is a beautiful spring day. It's actually the beginning of the summer, but it's a very cold day in comparison to the spring that we usually have. In the summertime, it gets very, very hot in here. It will get up to 50 degrees Celsius. While in the nighttime, the temperature drops because this is a desert, so once sun sets, there is a huge difference of temperature between day and night and between summer and winter. In the winter, it gets pretty cold here at night. Sometimes we can even have frost. So temperature is one challenge that we have here. Second is water. The Central Arava, or the Arava, is the only region in Israel which is not connected to the main water grid of the country. It means that all the water that we have to use here, or we can use here, have to come from this region. So what we do is we drill wells, we dig holes into the ground, and we drill deep down into the ground in order to take water from a huge aquifer, a water source that lies underneath the Arava. Now, there are 2 challenges involved. First of all, the drilling has to be very, very deep, and this involves a very complex hydraulic experts. Second, the water that we take out are brackish water. They're very salty, saline, and if you want to drink it or use it for domestic use, we have to desalinate it. And for agriculture, it's really hard to use such salty water. So it means that the quality and the quantity of water here is very challenging. Thirdly, as you've noticed yourselves, we're pretty isolated. The nearest city, which is Eilat, or a little bit up north, Beersheva, can be more than 2-hour drive, depends on where you are in the Central Arava. Remember, this is an area of an hour drive between the south and the north. So we're very isolated. It means that all the services for the local population have to be provided within the community. Because to drive 2 hours one way just to see a doctor, it means that you have to skip a day of work or make a special effort just for a simple eye test or anything else. Even a haircut can be challenging if you need to drive 2 hours just to get your haircut or grocery shopping or any other services, not to mention education, welfare, and services that every community really needs. So services have to be provided within the community due to the isolation of the region. This is only some of the challenges that we have here. Another challenge is, of course, our proximity to the Jordanian border and the intangible border, meaning the unseen border, and the very delicate situation that goes on now in all the Middle East, and especially in Jordan. And the fact that we are living in the longest open border in Israel is something that we need to consider while living here. It has been a quiet border since 1994, where the peace treaty was signed, and both countries, both Israel and Jordan, have strong interest to keep the border safe, but it only takes one lunatic just to walk across the non-existing border and to decide to change the situation here in the Arava. And last but not least, the natural soil of the Arava, as you can see, is full of rocks. It's barren, it's barren, it doesn't hold any water, and it's really bad for agricultural use. So naturally, this region is the spearhead of Israel's agriculture and produces more than 60% of Israel's fresh vegetable export in an area which is considered by many an unfarmable region. Actually, when the first pioneers came here, there's a nice story about the pioneers and Ben Gurion. The first pioneers who came here in the late 50s have asked the permission of the Prime Minister to settle in the Arava because the land belonged then to the government and the Jewish agency. Keren Kayemet. And while Ben Gurion was all about settling the Negev, and the request of 2 pioneers to settle in the Arava desert and create a community was music to his ears, they told him that they want to pursue agriculture in this unfarmable region. So he gave them the permission to settle the land, but sent some experts to find out whether it's doable or not. And all the experts came back and said, "We're very sorry, Prime Minister, it's a noble cause, but it's not doable." So the story is that Ben Gurion called his secretary and told him, "Well, you better find me at least one person who will say that maybe it's possible, otherwise we look like fools. You know, sending out young people to the desert while actually signing their death sentence." And after many queries and search, they did find some people said, "You know what, maybe if this and that and this will happen, maybe they can do agriculture in the desert." Now, one of the leading experts at our Research and Development Center here dedicated for agriculture, and one of the reasons we are able to do the agriculture that we do here, funded annually by both the Israeli government and Keren Kayemet, have told me a few years ago that the professor who taught her everything she knew about agriculture in Ben Gurion University in Beersheva retired a couple of years ago. And he wrote a memoir book, and he has invited her to his house to give her in person the memory book as one of his leading students. And while presenting the memory book to her, he told her, I need to apologize, my student. And she asked, what for? She was very shocked by his reaction. And he said, open the book. There is one chapter in the book dedicated to the farmers of the Arava. And the chapter starts with an apology. The professor wrote that he was one of the experts that David Ben-Gurions have sent to the Arava to find out whether agriculture in the Arava desert is even doable. And he is one of the many who came back and said it's not possible. And he said to Rivka, our researcher, I want to apologize, and I'm so proud of you because you are now teaching the farmers of the Arava how to farm. So to me, it's like closing a circle. And what a nice legacy it is that I told the people of the Arava that it's not doable, and you are teaching them how to make it possible. So it's a nice story that I think exemplified the spirit of the people here. And the people who came to the Arava are very stubborn, and like most Israelis, they don't like to hear no as an answer. So while all the experts told them you can't do agriculture here, they decided that this is going to be the place where we can make the desert bloom. So they did that with a lot of knowledge, a lot of faith, and ingenuity. We joke around here in the Arava that every time that someone comes here with a crazy idea, we don't laugh at him because they will prove us wrong. For example, some years ago, somebody decided to grow fish here in the desert. And everybody said, well, let's give it a try. And now 90% of Israel ornamental fish exports come from the desert because it's natural, right? It's so natural that we will grow fish here in the desert. Why not? So this is the land of impossible made possible, or as one of the founders of the visionaries of the land of Israel, Herzl, told us, if you will it, it is no dream. So this is the story. And we have decided to turn our disadvantages into advantages. For example, one of the things we utilize in agriculture here is the sun radiation. So it's very hot and the temperature fluctuates, and it's it's changeable weather. So we grow winter agriculture. When in Europe there is a shortage in the markets in fruits and vegetables, we have great sun radiation and mild winter, so we produce most of our products for export in the winter, and then go into the market in Europe, which is our main export destination, while there is a shortage in the market. This we can compensate for the high prices of growing vegetables here in the Arava. This is, for example, one disadvantage that we have turned into advantage. Another thing is that the salinity of the water here, if you balance it up to a point where from this point on you damage the crops, because salt is very bad for agriculture, but if you find a balance point and you apply enough salt on the plants without damaging it, salt will produce very sweet fruits and vegetables. Because salt is stress to a plant. So plants like our body, when we are stressed, we produce adrenaline or sugar because we need to fight or flight. It's the same with plants to ensure the survival of the next generation. So again, if you stress the plants in a scientific way without damaging them, you can get very sweet dates and you can increase the quality of your products. So for example, the dates that we grow here, and you can see them behind me, the date grove of this community, are considered to be premium A, first class in the world because of their sweetness and size. And a lot of it is due to the salinity level. By the way, we irrigate the dates with the brine of the desalinated water. So every drop of water here is being used. So again, it's a question of how you look at what you have in your disposal and you make the best use of the little resources that you have. Most of the agriculture that we grow here in the Arava are based on fresh vegetable. Whether it's tomatoes or eggplants or aubergines or other types of crops. Not every crop can grow here in the Arava because the conditions here are very, very difficult. And in order to grow here, you have to apply all kinds of scientific measures and a lot of research and development. But we also grow some fruits. You can see a lot of dates along the way, which is the main dominant fruit that we grow here in the area. Fits well with the desert conditions, but also grapes and watermelons and melons and mangoes and papayas and pineapples and different type of crops. Each time our research team is trying to add more crops, so we'll have a variety of crops to choose from. And each farmer will be able to find his own niche when it comes to what he grows in the land. You have to understand that in order to farm here in the Arava, you have to reclaim the land, bring soil from other places, process the land, because the natural land of the Arava is unfit for agriculture use. This is a massive project created by both Kakal and the Ministry of Agriculture, and the stones that you see here are actually dedications of the different countries that have contributed to this massive preparation of reclaiming the land before the farmers can come and build their farms on the land. We shouldn't take it for granted that you can take a piece of desert and turn it into a garden. Every green spot here is a man-made green spot or a woman-made green spot, because we have lots of women and men who participated in this operation of turning the desert into a... In this particular community, there are about 112 families. All are farming families. This is the community of Paran. By the way, Paran is mentioned in the Bible as one of the stops that the Israelites have made on their way from Egypt to Israel. When we read the Passover Haggadah last week, the story of Moses leading the people, Paran is mentioned in the Bible. So actually the mountains that you see over there are exactly the path of the Israelites' journey. So I like to tell people that when you look at the community and you look at the mountains, you can see the ancient and modern history of Israel combined together. But we have a local joke here that Moses was smart enough to keep on going all the way to Jerusalem, and we are stuck here. But I think he would be very proud to see what we've been able to accomplish here if he had been able to look now and see what we do. By the way, if you look at that oddly jagged shaped hill over there, do you see it? The highest hill over there with the sort of like jagged top, this is where Aaron's grave believed to be at, Moses' brother. And this is the direction of Petra, by the way. So Petra is hidden way behind those mountains. And all the hills that you see there, all the mountains are the Jordanian mountains. And actually it's really nice to see the buffer zone between Israel and Jordan, because if you look beyond the greenhouses, there is a narrow piece of land which is smoother and straighter before the bushy land starts. And this is actually the buffer zone between Jordan and Israel.
I det här växthuset har jag hittat jordgubbar. Och physalis.
Här kommer jag med lite goda tomater i olika format och färger. Fantastiskt goda. Och vi ser hur den här smakar. Jättegott. Riktigt tomatsmak.
Okej, alltså, det brukar alltid lura i mig något som är fel. Sist så trodde jag spiste paprika och då var det så chilipepper, så jag är lite grann, jag är lite orolig. Nej, här gången var det lurt. Det var en riktigt söt paprika.
This olive tree, you see it now with its tiny buds on it. Come back in November time. I've never seen so many buds as this year. This tree will be laden with, well, I would say black olives or green olives. It depends what time of year you come, because green and black olives come off the same tree. They start as green. You can pick them as green or you can pick them as black, but this tree is going to be laden with it. A very, very heavy, rich tree. Where do we first hear the olive tree in the Bible? Where's it first mentioned? If I was to pluck one of these leaves and put it in my mouth, maybe that would get you to understand or remember that in the book of in the story of Noah and the ark, we have here, the dove came back to him toward evening, and there in its bill was a plucked off olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the waters had deceased on the earth. So here's an expression that says that the dove brought light into the world. Why does the olive tree mean light? What is the symbol of light? Well, first of all, the oil from the olive provides the purest flame. You could bring light into dark by lighting your olive oil lamp. The tree itself has two sides to the leaves, the dark side and the white side. And as the day goes on, and on a breezy day, today there is no breeze, the tree literally flickers like a flame. And as far as the Jewish people are concerned, the olive tree is the symbol of the menorah, the candelabra in the temple, and the light that we've kept alive for thousands of years. And it was taken from the temple 2,000 years ago. However, it is now the emblem for the state of Israel. And that menorah, with the two olive branches either side of it, are the fact that we have kept that light alive and brought back and created the state of Israel. This olive tree symbolizes us light and continuance, and obviously its main symbol is that of peace.